Welcome into NHL Tonight, first shift for a Friday, November the 15th, 2024. EJ Raddick alongside my guy, Kevin Weeks. Good to have you back.
Good to see you, my man, as always.
End the week.
Let's go.
You know, and I'll tell you something.
Give them what they want.
We have a packed.
We do.
We have a packed show for you today. Take a look at this lineup of guests that we've got. Steve Mears will be joining us. They've got the Jackets and Penguins right here on NHL Network tonight, so we'll talk about that one. Then we roll in the Hall of Famer, Chris Chelios, and then Megan Duggan, an Olympic gold medalist. So all three joining us today on NHL Tonight first shift. So stay right here for the next hour. We got a lot to talk about today. But let's get to first things first, Weeksy. And it was a big night out in Edmonton for Connor McDavid as he reaches 1,000 points. He becomes the fourth fastest to 1,000. And fittingly, on a pass from Draisaitl, and a one-time goal into the cage. Really nicely done. You can see the teammates out there to join the party.
This was, I mean, you couldn't have scripted it any better. And then he had the game-winning assist in OT with this beautiful spinorama.
Oh, boy.
Had both the defenders in the spin cycle, put it on a pillow for Darnell Nurse, who had himself a whale of a game, 2 goals for Nurse. But a historical night. There you see it, each. Awesome stuff for Mick 1,000, as they're calling him.
Yeah, and they had the shirts afterwards with his face on it. This guy's got 1,000 points. And, I mean, what an unbelievable career
man.
to this stage. I mean, only the guys to get there faster, Gretzky, Lemieux, and Mike Bossy. So he's the fourth fastest to 1,000 points. You can see it right there. Gets in ahead of Peter Stastny, another great player. I mean, Connor McDavid, I mean, like, you know, he came into the league with all these expectations, all the hype. I mean, he's lived up to all of that. He took his team to the Cup final last year. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. And who knows how high the ceiling is. I mean, how many points he will finish with.
Well, I could say this. I echo all of that. And I think Connor McDavid, from talking to people back home in Toronto, my native hometown, from since he was a kid, everybody was telling me, wait till you see this one, wait till you see this one, wait. And for you to get that in the best youth hockey league in the world, that's huge. And he's come in and exceeded all expectations at every level. And now what's next up, obviously, is the hunt, the quest for a cup, for them to bring the Stanley Cup back to Alberta, as you pointed out, which would be the 6th in their franchise history. But I can tell you this, here's the one thing about Connor McDavid. I asked him this at the Player Media Tour in Vegas prior to the season. Like, how do you continue to find ways, aside from the cup, we know that there's a great shot of his parents and brother and everybody. I said, how do you continue to find ways? He goes, what do possibilities even mean? I just like to push the potential, the boundaries of what possibilities are and what we can accomplish as a team and what I can do as an individual. That blew my mind when he said that. I was like, this guy's on a different planet. That answer to me was that he was on a different planet. And next up will be the 2,000-point club. And health willing, he's going to be a member.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he gets to 2,000. There's only one other member.
Exactly. Right.
You know, we showed you that list of the guys who are active players, but like I believe we have a list of the guys that he could pass this year that are, you know, some of the great players in the history of the game, and you can see it here. I mean, he's got 1,001 right now. I mean, Marty St. Louis is certainly in the sights. The Pocket Rocket, Henri Richard, Denny Potvin, Ray Whitney had an underrated, great career.
Played with both of them.
And then, I mean, it's a long way to go to Glenn Anderson. But listen, if anybody can do it, it's McDavid. He'd need 98 points to get there.
Well, he'll get there this year.
All right. Well, listen, I like that certainty. I like that certainty that you have there. But, I mean, he's just going to tick past all kinds of great players. And you're right, he might end up number 2 behind Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah. I see it all there. I see all the pieces. I played with a lot of guys on the board. 2 of them you just mentioned, Marty St. Louis and Ray Whitney, the great Mark Messier, the great Jaromir Jagr, the GOAT, who we just spent some time with over in Prague when we were there.
That's right.
For the Global Series. And I'll tell you another quick story. And you were talking about, you know, Gretz and you and Chelly. We'll get to that later in the show. But when Wayne Gretzky tells me of how great of a player Connor McDavid is, you can't get any higher an accolade and an endorsement than that. When the greatest ever play speaks in that ilk.
Glowing terms.
Glowing terms about Connor McDavid. That tells you everything.
Yeah, so McDavid, a member of the 1,000-point club, and just keeps on keeping on.
Unreal.
An unbelievable career, and we love being able to watch him as he continues to move forward. On the docket last night, the Devils, I mean, we saw the Devils at the start of the season. They took care of Buffalo. We really liked what we saw.
Yes.
And then they've been back. They've played a lot of games. They've played more games than anybody else in the league so far. But on the road, they've been really good. And they go to Florida, back-to-back wins against a Florida Panthers team that I saw in Finland that looked almost unbeatable. And here they are, the New Jersey Devils, on a nice little run.
I'm beyond impressed by what the Devils did down there in South Florida. I'm not talking about what type of sushi they had and what sea bass and if it had the miso glaze. Not that. What they did on the ice against the defending Stanley Cup champ. And by the way, Each, how many times do we talk about this? This is where you measure up.
Yeah.
These are the games.
But to play back-to-back, too. Like, you might go into Florida, right, in the first game.
And squeak
beat 'em,
one.
And, you didn't get Bobrovsky.
Right.
Bennett didn't play.
Yeah.
So you figure Florida, a second game.
Right.
The Devils beat them worse in the second game.
That's true. They handled them even better in the second game.
There's the totals. I mean, that's crazy.
That is so massive for the way they approached it, from speaking to guys in the group, from the way they approached these two games, to say, hey, listen, we have to serve notice to the league. These are the games that we have to really elevate our game for. Why? The Florida Panthers are the standard. Not only did they defend Stanley Cup champs, but they got to the Cup final the year prior to that. And a lot of the matchups, individual matchups, I'm Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, one of the best duos in the league. Palat, we have him on our line. He's won Cups in Tampa. How do we match up against Chucky? How do we match up against Barkov and the other great players in that group? And the answer is, as a team, they did an outstanding job. The goaltending was great. There was shot blocking. And you know what I like? I like, and for a lot of the young girls and boys that are watching, the depth players as well.
Yeah.
Brendan Dillon in the fight.
Yeah.
Then yesterday you had the fight with McDermott and Gadjevich again. Then you look at our boy Paul Cotter.
Yep.
Our boy Nason.
Nason doing it.
All of those pieces.
Yep.
It was complete team wins in both games, and I give the Devils a lot of credit going down to South Florida.
And a little pushback, too, physically, right? Because like, earlier in the season, there was some talk, well, the Devils, you could push them around. There was some pushback. There was some nasty fights.
Unreal.
I mean, Gadjevich was involved in two of them with different opponents, but he's a tough cookie.
He is. Hey, you spoke with Brendan Dillon when we were in Prague, and I had a good chat with him the other night after their game on ESPN, and I can tell you, those are the guys. These tilts were unreal, and this is the one from last night, which was unreal as well. And oh, by the way, UFC
caught him. He caught him with that right hand.
But UFC is going to be here in New York at the Garden this weekend. Dana White might want to put in a call to Gadjevich and Dillon and McDermott and see if they can get them on the card, because those were exceptional, especially the first one. That one was great too. Yeah. That one was unreal.
Some nasty fights. But the Devils showing a little bit of it. I mean, that's what you have to do. I mean, if you're trying to win the Stanley Cup, you have to show you can play a lot of different ways and still win. And they're showing that a little bit. It's early. We're in the middle of November.
No question.
But it's been a nice start. I think for the Devils, the thing they got to do is clean up their game at home. They haven't been very good on home ice.
That's true.
But on the road and down in Florida, but that was impressive.
It was. Our boy Ken Danico, Mr. Devil.
Yeah.
Most games played for any Devil in the history. Devils legend. And Dano always talks about that home record. He's referenced that too. But so far, I've been impressed. We had their first two games, as mentioned, out in Prague, and seeing the way the Devils are able to kind of play a harder brand. Yeah. That's something that's really impressive to me. You know the speed's there. We know the skill and the ability's there. But the fact that they're playing a harder brand, a more honest brand, they're not getting pushed off pucks as often. They're defending with more purpose and intensity to complement their speed, not just at the offensive end. That's really been eye-catching to me and speaking to people around the league. Yeah, I mean, they're 8-3 on the road this year, and if you count, like in Prague, they split those games, but really that's a road game. So it's 9-3 on the road, and at home 4-3-2, but really 3-3-2. So, they got to get better at home, but they got to be thrilled. Oh, big time. With beating the Florida Panthers like they're able to do in back-to-back games, and lighten up Bob, which is not that's no easy feat. An easy chore. That is no easy feat either. You're right. Well, we'll keep an eye on the Devils. Yeah. That's the thing. They've played so many more games, but they're putting up points. 20 games. Carolina is behind them only by 4 points in the standings. They played 5 fewer games. Sure. And the Rangers is the same thing. 5 points back. They played 5 fewer games. So it's going to catch up at some point. But the Devils, with a really nice job down in South Florida, those are really good wins. Yeah. Let's take a look at the news and notes board for you for Friday, and you can see Matt Zuccarello. This is not good news. He's placed on the IR with a lower body injury, so we hope that Matt Zuccarello is going to be back soon. It looks like it's a couple of weeks at least, so hopefully he's going to be all right.
In Carolina, the goalie situation is getting to be a little dire right now. Freddie Anderson is out long-term with this lower body injury, longer than they even thought, so hopefully he gets back. Kochetkov doubtful for Saturday with an undisclosed injury. And then some good news from Vegas. Braden McNabb signs a 3-year extension with the Vegas Golden Knights, $3.65 million per year. Really good for Braden McNabb, who's been he's one of the originals there.
That's right, yeah.
And he just comes to play, not fancy, but does a great job for the Vegas Golden Knights. So happy to see him get rewarded with a 3-year contract extension. When we return, Steve Mears will be the first of our trio of guests. He's got the call tonight for the Blue Jackets as they take on the Penguins in Columbus. Mearsy talking about Crosby against the Jackets. That's coming up next on First Shift. Let's take a look at the Friday schedule, and there's 5 games on the docket. We got one for you right here on the NHL Network at 7 o'clock, the Penguins and Jackets in Columbus. And then everything shifts later, 9 o'clock Eastern, the Caps and Avalanche, and the Avs get Nichushkin back in the lineup after being in the Players Assistance Program, so he gets to come back tonight. Jonathan Drouin is back, and also Miles Wood, so they get some bodies back in the lineup. Flames host the Preds, Utah Hockey Club hosting the Golden Knights. Those are all 9 o'clock. And then at 10 o'clock, the Ducks and the Red Wings out in Anaheim. But we will have the Penguins and Blue Jackets right here at 7 Eastern, and we will have on the call our friend, my former partner, the one and only, Steve Mears, the play-by-play voice now of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Mearsy, how are you settling into Columbus? How's everything going there?
It's been incredible, EJ. We're loving it here. The city is amazing. I'm coming to you. This is my first NHL Network hit live from Dublin, Ohio, where we live.
Very nice.
So, yeah, still getting settled in, trying to just get started with the season and getting to know the neighbors and everything. But the organization's been first class, and the city is just so incredible. But as you guys know, you come in as a visiting broadcaster, and you see the arena and the hotel area, the downtown area. You don't get to see the suburbs of most of these cities. And then when you come here and you really get to know the surrounding areas, and this is one of the best destinations in the NHL. I see why there have been a lot of players who played for the Blue Jackets and retired and stayed here because it's just so good. It's good for a young family like we have, and we're loving it. Loving life here. Everything's been good. Need a few more wins, though, hopefully starting tonight.
Yeah.
So, Mearsy, for you, I mean, this is a big opportunity, a huge one tonight. Your arms look limber. They don't look tight. Should be able to reach your wallet. I mean, you might be broadcasting for free. Maybe a little money on the board.
Yeah, a little money on the board against your old club.
That's what I told the boys earlier today, that I'd be putting up, if I have to, put up some money on the board there.
That a boy, Mearsy.
And then I was like, you know what? I don't think the NHL players need help with their end-of-season party fund, at least not from me. So, but I do. I would be tempted to put a little cash up on the board. I mean, you can tell me, like, what's a standard amount? I don't even know. Like, what's a standard amount?
Well, it's all relative. You know, it's relative to the earnings. But I'd say for a guy like you, I know it's holiday time, but you know, maybe $300, $350.
$300.
Why not?
That's a
Why
good
not
road meal for me.
I spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh.
I'm being light on him. Five would have been real.
500 would have been the right.
5 would have been real, but I'm kind of bridging the gap.
Yeah.
For respectability in the room, credibility, you know.
Yeah.
I know it's holiday time right now, so I'm not trying to go too deep for you.
Forget about the holidays. Weeksy, you know that I have my food tour going on, the NHL food tour on Instagram. Yeah. I need the funds to be able to afford to go to these nice restaurants, like when we come to New York City, when we go to Vancouver, we're going to Chicago in a couple of weeks.
I get that.
You know, I try to have a good fork, much like you guys.
100%. That's understood. EJ, take it away.
So basically what he's saying is that, like, the heck with the guys.
Yeah, it says.
Yeah, I mean, I've always known Mearsy. His arms, like you talked about him being limber.
I was trying to.
His elbows seem to be attached to the side of his body. I can know in my experience with him, and he can he can definitely not reach around to the wallet. It's very rare.
We know that's not true. Hey, you know what? If I was ever going to do it, it'd be the game in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
That would be the one, because I think it's like been 3 U.S. presidents since the Blue Jackets have won a game in Pittsburgh.
Might be true.
So tonight now, the opponent actually is irrelevant. The Blue Jackets, they need a win. We got to snap this loose. Need some goals here.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a rivalry game, but it really doesn't even matter. We got to get a victory in this one. But I have the one in Pittsburgh circled, and I told some of the guys, I told Zach Werenski, who I don't think has ever won a game in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I told him, we're winning that game. When we go to Pittsburgh in January, we're winning. So maybe that will be the one where I'll dip into the wallet.
And
guys,
you'll have a crisp $10 bill right on the table for the guys to split up.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Good luck, boys. Go ahead, Weeksy.
Mersey, I know you said some of the goals have been hard to come by as far as offense and stuff, but maybe you can tell the viewers who from the Jackets has kind of impressed you now that you have a chance to be the voice of the team and see them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I've liked what I've seen from Kirill Marchenko. I think he's taken a step here this season and just like trending in the right direction last couple of years, some 20-goal seasons. And actually, guys, the secondary scoring has been pretty good. Matthew Olivier's a guy who's got 4 goals, hits everything that moves out there, tough as nails. They just got a great game from their checking line with Zach Aston-Reese, Kevin Labanc, and Sean Corrali, as they scored 2 goals in about 20 seconds in Seattle. And they played one of the best periods that we've seen them play in the first. And then they kind of lost their way in the second. Seattle took over. It snowballed. And they ultimately lose 5-2 against a Kraken team that they should have beaten. And that's kind of been the storyline here these last 5 or 6 games, where a lot of them, they deserved a better fate. 50 shots against the Sharks, 40 shots against Anaheim and against the Kraken. A lot of post hits, but they're just having a hard time finishing. And the irony is, in the first 9 games of the season, they had no trouble finishing. I mean, all the bounces were going their way. 4 times they scored 6 goals in a game. At one point, they were leading the league in 5-on-5 goals. And you know how it's cyclical, and you just get in a little bit of a funk. And now some players with some goal-scoring droughts, not a whole lot of power play opportunities, and not a bunch of power play goals either. So trying to get the offense here going against a porous Pittsburgh team. We know they've struggled defensively, so really good opportunity, especially returning home after a long road trip. Get the W here, and it's the start of a back-to-back. We'll be in Montreal also tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's a tough back-to-back, but you know you got to get it turned around and got to get some W's. I'm going to drag you into something, Mersey, here, and because you were a Penguins fan growing up, you did their games for many years. Obviously, now you're transitioning into your time in Columbus, and it's going to be a long, great run for you there, I'm sure. But this guy here to my right the other day, he gets on. I wasn't around to talk about it with him, but he gets on and he starts talking about Sidney Crosby being in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I started to think about it, and I was like, logically, Nashville needs a center. They have 3 first-round picks that they could trade in this year's draft. There might be a match there. But in the end, I mean, Sidney's going to have to want to go there. He just signed a new contract. So I ask you, Mr. Mears, someone who's spent time with Sidney Crosby, has ridden the buses, has been on the planes. I mean, what's your read on Sidney and what the future holds for him in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I was just talking with him earlier this morning, actually, and I've known him since he was 18 years old. So, I think, EJ, you nailed it. It's totally up to him. It is totally his call. If he someday decides that this team, this Pittsburgh team, with what's unfolded here this year and possibly the next year or two, if that is something that he can't palate, then I would think, if I were him, I would be interested in moving, just because you have a lot of great hockey left and no one would fault him. Not a single person, certainly not in Pittsburgh, would fault him if the team circumstances weren't equal to his greatness. So it's totally up to him. I know he's incredibly loyal. He's so loyal to the fans of Pittsburgh, the organization, and to that jersey. So I'd still be surprised if that was the course he wanted to go to. But I know he's also the most competitive player that we've seen in a generation, if not more. And he wants to win. He has that burning desire to win, a hatred of losing. So, yeah, that's an interesting one we see with Nashville. I know everybody always talks about, would he ever go to Colorado and play with Nathan McKinnon? It certainly would be obviously huge news. And I just think it's totally up to him, and no one would fault him if he decided that, you know what, the time has come. I still want to win. You move on and you become great somewhere else, and maybe even win another Stanley Cup somewhere else.
Mersey, let me just do a little pivot from that, and thanks for your breakdown. Nationwide Arena was unique, the first of its kind, really, in the NHL. to have the game rink and the practice rink within that at the same time. What's that been like for you in covering the team and having a one-stop shop?
It's actually a lot of driving for me because Dublin is not near Nationwide Arena. So I spend a lot of time in the car listening to your program here,
Okay.
EJ, and listening to a bunch of other hockey shows and podcasts and that sort of thing. It's actually very relaxing, especially on a game day.
Yeah.
But it is a unique setup, and not just the practice rink attached to the main rink. We see the arena district, of Nationwide Arena with restaurants and bars and offices and apartment buildings. And that is a blueprint that other markets have taken a look at and wanted to replicate, including Pittsburgh, ironically. They're still trying to get that built up, and there's a lot of construction around PPG Paints Arena. And that was the idea right from the start with Pittsburgh and a couple other markets of having that one-stop shop, not just for practice in the game, but all of these other things. So you make it a night out for the fans when they come to a hockey game, and you might even live down there. You might go to dinner down there and then a concert, that sort of thing. But Nationwide, I'm amazed. The arena is 24 years old now. I went to games when I was at Bowling Green. I went to games their inaugural season, and back then it was shiny and new and exciting. The logo was new and the team was new, and it was just so thrilling to be there back in 2000. And now, because they've kept it up so beautifully, I still think it's one of the best venues in the league. And then the crowd support is second to none, considering the struggles that they've had the last couple of seasons. I mean, the Blue Jackets fans are outstanding, and I'm seeing that firsthand, getting a chance to interact with so many of them. I got a chance to go down, hang out by the Cannon in the preseason and watch some games from the Cannon because we weren't broadcasting. So got to shake some hands, meet some fans down there, and the fan support is just terrific. And I think if they can continue with this way that they're trending with Don Waddell and Dean Evison, the vision that they have, building through the draft, and eventually getting a Stanley Cup, a perennial Stanley Cup contender here, this is going to be one of the premier markets, if it's not already. And that building is going to be something else when you start talking about consistent playoff hockey here in Columbus.
Well, they are at home tonight to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins. We will have the game, Jackets and Penguins, tonight right here on the NHL Network. You'll hear Steve Mears and Jody Shelley. Thanks for the time today, buddy. And listen, throw $5 into the hat. I mean, come on. It would it kill you?
I may throw 5,000 in the hat for this one. I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
But the one, as I said, Pittsburgh, that's the one I want to see him get the win. And you know me. I'm certainly not, but when it comes to the restaurants, Weeksy, you know this. I don't have the alligator arms.
Yeah,
I will pay
That's fair.
just about any amount for a good meal, and especially when it comes to sushi. So everybody has to check out the food tour on Instagram.
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Absolutely.
So to sum it up, Mearsy said he's going to put 5,000 on the
He's
board
putting
for the
5
next
Gs.
game. All right.
5
Great
large.
job, Mearsy. That a way to be. We love it. Have a great call tonight. When we come back, the Hall of Famer, Chris Chelios. He's involved in something special with the Big Ten this weekend at a Wrigley Field. We'll talk to him about that. And, of course, handing off that plaque to JR at the Hall of Fame earlier in the week. That's next on First Shift. Earlier in the week, here's the tweet from the Hockey Hall of Fame. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, Jeremy Roenick. Jeremy receives his honored member plaque from Hall of Famer Chris Chelios, and special moment for those two guys, and very happy to be joined by our friend of the show, Chris Chelios, in Chicago at Wrigley Field. We're going to get to why he's there in a moment, but I've got to ask you about Monday night. I mean, with Jeremy Roenick, someone who's been a close friend of yours, you played together, you've known each other for a long time. It's got to be special to be up there handing him his plaque to go into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first picture, quite honestly, that I've seen of it, and it's awesome. First of all, that he chose me. What a great teammate he was, great player. Couldn't be happier for him. I think it was just a matter of when, not if he was going to get in the Hall of Fame. And I think, just watching him throughout the weekend, just a big relief. It was frustrating, I'm sure, sometimes every year the induction nominations came along and he wasn't part of it. But I think he's at peace now, JR, if that's possible. He's been through a lot, and he was great for the game, charismatic. I don't think there's another player, quite honestly, for the Blackhawks, at least in my era, that had that kind of relationship with the fans. other than Bobby Hall. His charisma, his personality, his accessibility to fans. And I don't know if Bobby loved the cameras as much, and obviously the media attention wasn't. No one loved the camera more than JR, and anybody talked about themselves in the third person as much as he did. It was pretty funny.
Well, listen, it's well deserved. I was really thrilled that, I know the day that he got in, I was so excited to hear the news. You mentioned there that, he asked you to do this. You're a Hall of Famer, so I guess you got to ask somebody as well. What's that conversation like? I'm sure you were quick to say yes, but that's got to be interesting.
I mean, I got goosebumps. The fact that I was like, I don't know if I was the second or third person that he called after he'd found out. Mm-hmm. And he's had some great teammates. You heard him mention, Doug Wilson quite a bit for what type of mentor he was for him when he first got in the league. But I was surprised, to be honest with you. And we played together for 7 years, around 7 years, and it was a great run. And for him to give me that call, and we always kept in touch, and obviously it's just those long distance relationships. It doesn't matter how long you're separated. When you get together, it's like you never missed a beat. So I'm cheering for him. I hope at some point now that he's in the Hall of Fame, they have the ambassador roles, which me and Denny Servard are doing, and I'm hoping Jeremy can somehow fit in here and get to see him more with the Blackhawks, because he'll always, I think, be remembered as a Blackhawk.
Great stuff, Chelly. Chelly, I'd like to ask you this. Having played against you and a lot of the Hall of Famers and playing with a lot of them, one thing that I find interesting are the conversations. EJ just touched on it. But what about, the perspective? At what point for you in your illustrious historic career did you think to yourself, hey, I'm a Hall of Famer, or I'm on track to be a Hall of Famer?
I mean, honestly, not tooting my horn, but I played so long in the league. I think that the longevity thing alone, and it was just, again, I would have never imagined. I thought it was over in Chicago, quite honestly, and until I got traded to Detroit, and I don't think there'd be any way I would have been in the Hall had my career ended with Chicago, and then. I got a second life. I was on a great team in Detroit, played 10 more years. And, at that point, I look back and, when people are reading some of the accomplishments and obviously the team, not just individual, lucky, I said, for a guy who came from where I did and had no business playing in the NHL, just, where I came from, moving to California, all that whole story of running into a kid on the beach. It's really, I was a fluke as far as I'm concerned, but it's been an amazing run, and I'm still part of the NHL with Blackhawks. And had it not been for Babcock, I would have got 1,000 points. Not that it matters, but whatever. I won't mention his.
All right. We'll
1,000 points would have been cool. I'm sorry.
Of course. I mean, that's
for anyone, let alone as a D-man.
Yeah, those milestones are crazy, and you did have such a long career. I want to ask, because when you bring that up, you played a long time. You played through a couple of eras, it seemed like. I mean, when you came into the league in the mid '80s in Montreal, different world than the one you left in Detroit/Atlanta at the end of your career. I mean, you saw a lot of changes. Was there one that stood out just about the way guys did things, the way teams were assembled, the way you guys traveled together?
Well, the training, I think, is the biggest difference. It's just evolution of, these guys are taking supplements. We were, drinking Bud Lights, in the 80s.
It might have been even before Bud Light.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, guys, when I first broke in the league, Bob Gainey was considered, and Lafleur were in great shape. But, all they did was ride a stationary bike and did some bench presses and ran. And then, I think I was ahead of the curve for sure when I got a trainer, T.R. Goodman out in California. I don't think any hockey players had personal trainers at that point. And I think I beat everybody to the punch, and eventually everybody caught up to me. But that's the biggest thing, is the training, the size, the speed. I wouldn't necessarily say the skill level. They just do everything a lot faster now at that speed. It's, I watch games live, and it's incredible.
Chelly, what about, there's a story about you being on the phone in a phone booth and a team needing a defenseman. And maybe you could tell that story, because that is absolutely remarkable how this came to be and how big of a part of your story, your journey, this was.
Yeah, I won't say I was retired because I was 17 years old, and that's not much of a career up to 17. But I definitely wasn't playing anymore other than the senior leagues
Wow.
out in San Diego. And I had tried out for a team, 2 months prior to being retired. And
Wow.
one of the guys, his name is Bobby Parker, a kid from Moose Jaw, was playing in San Diego at the time at the college. And I just happened to run into him on the beach while they were training. And he literally went to the lifeguard tower. We got a pen, paper, wrote down the number of the coach from Moose Jaw, Larry Billows. And I literally went to the payphone, and called Moose Jaw from that phone. And I actually ended up ripping that payphone out, the handle of it, and keeping it. I still have that stored somewhere.
No way.
Yeah, I swear that's my good luck phone right there.
Hey.
Wow.
I'll dig it out one of these days. And then I went on to be Bobby's partner for the next 2 years because he left the university and went back to Moose Jaw. And I'll say hi to Bobby. He's battling cancer right now, and I wish him the best. He's living back in Moose Jaw with his family, and I owe everything to Bobby. And that's where it all turned around for me.
Wow. What a crazy.
I got
It
goosebumps.
just goes to show you, and I'd heard the story before, but every time I hear it, it's amazing because you went on to play for, a long time in the league, 20, 25 years, I think.
Wow.
A long time. Chelly, you're at Wrigley Field right now, and I wanted to let the viewers know and the listeners what you're doing there. You're part of this joint proposition with Abbott Laboratories and the Big Ten, raising money, and here you can see it right here, the We Give Blood Drive. Abbott and the Big Ten, pitting the schools in the Big Ten. Now, there are 18 schools in the Big Ten now, so it's a little bit of an odd misnomer there, but that's evolution, as you talk about. Every donation scores 1 point for your school on the leaderboard. The winning school will receive $1 million to advance student or community health, and also, as a donor, you get into a raffle where perhaps you get a all expense-paid trip to the Big Ten championship football game on December the 7th. Now, tomorrow at Wrigley Field, Ohio State is playing Northwestern. You'll be involved with that. But here's a look at the leaderboard, and your Badgers second right now. So they're doing good. But what's going on in Nebraska? They're lighting it up.
We're doing good, and especially because we're ahead of Michigan, because we know how much nobody likes Michigan. But
yeah, there you go.
But yeah, they jumped from third to second in the last month. They're closing in on Nebraska. The best thing is where you can donate in Wisconsin, or one of those places is right next to the College Club. If you haven't been there, EJ or Weeksy, but they're basically stored right next to each other. So, but anyway, yeah, I partnered up with Abbott and the Big Ten on the We Give Blood Drive, and it's a great competition. At the end of the day, we're all in it together, all the schools, and they're doing a great job. These students and alumni donating blood. It's so important. One donation saves lives, and it's just great to be a part of this and give back a little bit. So we'll spend the day at Wrigley here and part of the day at Wrigley here and greet some of the donators. And like I said, you're saving lives. That's the bottom line. And I'm still gonna pull for this, but like you mentioned, the winning school gets $1 million to give towards community health, and that's also a big thing for us too. So get down there, and like you said, it's I think it's called the BigTen.org/Abbott. That's the site that you go to find out where your nearest place you can donate blood to. But
all right.
Thanks for your help too. Obviously, NHL plugging this is going to help them a ton. And I'm sure people are going to go and do their thing and
help out. Help out where you can.
That's a great initiative. Chelly, I'm going to end on this. We were having a conversation pre-show, Ej and I and some of our folks here off camera about sometimes for players, how some players can get into different situations and kind of lose focus on the game. You had a very unique ability, and still do, but had a very unique ability to multitask. You're in incredible shape as a player. You're a Hall of Fame player. You represented Team USA, and the rest of it, Stanley Cup winners. Sorry you beat us in 02 for the Cup. That sucks. But all of that to say, you were always dabbling. You always had other interests, and I know restaurants being one of them. How are you able to be in all those other things and yet still be the Chris Chelios that we've all known you to be as the great defenseman?
I mean, honestly, like I don't consider myself a very serious person, that everything in moderation. But there's no question when I got on the rink, I was all business. But I had the ability to turn that off the minute I left the rink. I didn't eat, sleep, and drink hockey. When the summers came, it was surf, and snowboarding in the winters. Now that I'm, So I found ways to keep myself busy. And then by having 4 kids, that was the best, cure for everything, raising that family. And just, so I kept myself busy so I wouldn't think as much. You're always moving. And I think that was my strength. I watched my parents work, 15, 17-hour days in the bars and restaurants. And that's kind of where it started for me. And I loved working. I was a laborer, and it didn't bother me to jump in the car and drive or do anything, quite honestly. But again, it helped towards hockey, but like I said, I was able to turn it off. Even when I, was out of hockey at 17, it didn't really bother me as much because I didn't really think I was going to make the NHL. There was it wasn't in the mix for me. I was just focusing on getting a college scholarship because no one in our family had ever done that. So, there was no disappointment, quite honestly, when it happened. I just went on to the next thing. So I guess I hope that answers your question, Weeksley.
That's unreal.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The guy had a great passion for the game.
Oh.
I always feel like with Chelly, that was always at the top of the list. So, Chris, thanks so much for the time today. We really appreciate it. Good luck with working with the Big Ten and with Abbott Laboratories on the blood drive. Should be a great weekend there in the Chicago area. Wrigley Field, I mean, you get Ohio State, you get Northwestern, football game there. They got the Winter Classic coming up there. Big times in Chicago. So thanks again for your time, and good luck this weekend.
Yeah, and the Badgers will be coming to that too for that Winter Classic.
That's right. There you go.
Awesome. But yeah, go Badgers. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, Chelly. Good to see you, brother. Thank you.
All right, on Wisconsin. On Wisconsin. There you go. Thanks, Chelly.
All right.
The great Chris Chelios joining us. What a show we got today.
Yeah, stacked.
Megan Duggan is going to join us. She's taking on another role, this one with the PWHL. We'll talk to Megan. That's next. Got a little news from the PWHL. It's some big news. They've announced that Megan Duggan, Director of Player Development for the New Jersey Devils, will bring her expertise to serve as a special consultant to hockey operations for the league. And with that, we bring in the one and only Megan Duggan. Thanks so much for your time. And let me ask you, how did this all come together?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Came together pretty naturally, I guess. I obviously have a passion for the sport. I'm in the sport right now, played for a long time, and just friends of mine playing and working in the PWHL, and over the last couple of years, have asked me things here or there. I've been doing some quiet consulting and advising on miscellaneous topics, but they came to me and said, "Hey, how about we make this official so we can actually utilize you from time to time?" So that's really kind of how it came about. I think it's, I'm excited to obviously help out in any way that I can and use some of what I've learned in my role, with New Jersey to be able to help out in the PWHL.
Great stuff. Congrats, Megan. I would ask you this. Everybody has a vision for the league, the sport, the way the game's played. What's yours for the PW?
Oh man, I mean, the league launched last year, obviously, and just had a ton of success. I think exceeded a lot of the expectations. I think we've seen a big appetite for professional women's hockey and professional women's sports right now. So I just hope, the vision, the league continues to take off. There's been discussion of the league considering expansion, possibly soon in the following seasons. And I just think continuing to see the growth, the trajectory of women's sports and women's hockey is really exciting. Love watching all the young girls have, someone to aspire to be and a profession. And so my hope is that, the excitement remains and the league keeps continuing to take off and the women get kind of the notoriety that they have deserved for a really long time.
A couple of weeks ago now, we had the rollout of the jerseys, and I thought they were spectacular. Bauer did a great job with that. Well, give me your thoughts on the jersey, because that's a big thing. It's, we might overlook it, but think about the original six. We think about that Rangers jersey, the Canadiens jersey, the Leafs, the Bruins, the Blackhawks. I mean, that's a big deal. What was your thought about those the jerseys and how they looked when they rolled them out, like I said, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, great point, EJ. It's a huge deal. I hope that 100 years from now, we're looking back and we're talking about, the excitement around this original six here. And so I loved seeing it. I think, the business side and the hockey ops side and everyone that was behind that did an excellent job. One, keeping it under wraps for as long as they did. I mean, none of that getting out. But I think everyone's excited about them. I think the fans and the cities are excited to really continue to garner excitement and get on board with some of these logos and the merch. You guys know it's all about the merch, right? So, I think it's great. I was really excited to see them, and I know last year, there were some comments, oh, like what are the team names and the colors going to be? But I think the league did such a fantastic job getting the league up and running last year, and then really taking their time to transition and create, and show everyone what the team's names are going to be moving forward. So lots of excitement around that. They've created a lot of great content. I'm probably biased. I grew up in the Boston area, so I love the Boston Fleet one. I probably shouldn't talk about that now that I'm part of like the hockey ops, but
You're allowed. You're allowed to have your opinion.
Real?
like throwing a little bit of a little bit of Homer out there too.
Okay.
It's a safe zone here that we
Yes.
established.
Yes, it
So
is.
we appreciate your honesty and transparency. Hey, listen, you just mentioned the excitement, and something that's really important is kind of nurturing that excitement in the fans, because that was reflective in a lot of the gates and the crowds at the big venues.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us for this upcoming P-Dub season? Are there going to be some more games played at some of those big venues? The crowd certainly showed their appetite and their support for it.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, I think the fan community was really passionate last year, and it's continuing to grow. I think, yeah, a lot of great things in the works for this upcoming season. I'm not privy to all the information in my consultant role, but there's a lot of staff on the hockey ops side, on the business side, working tremendously hard to, continue to create opportunities for more fans to be involved. This is a league that welcomes audience of all ages and backgrounds and, all walks of life to come to the rink, to support these women playing, and to be a part of, what we feel is a really important movement. And so there'll be a lot of that this year for sure.
All right, Megan, I guess it's kind of University of Wisconsin Day here on First Shift. Chris Chelios has been on. We talked a little bit about the Badgers. You're a Badger. I wanted to ask you about something that you did several months ago now. You gave a commencement address at Camp Randall Stadium in front of, I guess, 50,000, young people. There's the shot. There's the photograph of it. Like, what is that like to do something like that? That's a big deal. And I mean, for me, we do TV shows all the time. I'd been a nervous wreck. What was it like?
You know what? Huge honor for me to be standing there in a city and in a university that means so much to me. To have that, the opportunity to speak to students that are really looking for, advice and wisdom. It was a tremendous, tremendous day. I was a little bit nervous, when I first got up there, but quite frankly, with that many people in the crowd, some of those people were so small. They were like the size of ants to me. So
Yeah.
I could barely see them. But it was the prep, the preparation going into it that probably was the most difficult, but just a truly wonderful day for, the students in the university and my family to be there with me and to celebrate, amazing accomplishment of graduates of a wonderful university. So a big honor for me, and it went very well. It was a beautiful day in Madison.
Megan, listen, we had the good fortune, my wife had the good fortune of attending the Women in Sports Conference put on by Sportico in New York a couple weekends ago. And there's a huge trajectory for women's sports. You can call it not isolated to the Caitlin Clark effect, but the cumulative effect that we're seeing as to why the business case is as strong as it is and why the opportunities now are as strong as they are. Maybe that's something you could speak to since you're on the forefront of a lot of those discussions.
Yeah, I think it could be the Caitlin Clark effect. It could be the PWHL effect.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different things colliding at once. But I think finally, the investment is there. You look at Mark Walters and the investment that him and his group have made into the Professional Women's Hockey League. And I think people that are investing are starting to get a return on investment. They're starting to see eyeballs and viewership. I think there's networks that want to talk about it. They want to have, like you guys, women on here to have this conversation. And so it's the trickle effect now. I think there's dollars being put into it. There's increased visibility. And everyone's getting excited about it, which we've known for a long time. I played for a long time, and we're pushing for it, and now it's really starting to bubble to the surface, and not only that, but take off. So excited to see where it continues to go.
Megan, you've been a trailblazer in a lot of different areas of your life, and you're doing it with your work with the New Jersey Devils as well. I mean, how would you describe your role there and the things that you're involved with Tommy Fitzgerald and that group?
Yeah, so such a great group, obviously, and I've learned so much from Fitzy over the last couple years. Exciting to be a part of a team with such a bright, I guess I was going to say future, but bright current,
Yeah.
state right now. Really excited where the team's going. It's been an amazing organization for me to jump in and learn from as kind of my kind of first post playing job, I guess. So Fitzy's amazing. He does a great job running the ship and leading the crew. My role specifically in New Jersey on the development side is really high level, trying to maximize the talent of our player pool. So our unsigned draft choices and a lot of our young pros, and figure out, what's the direction that we're taking these guys. Where do we see them fitting into our organization, or using them as different pieces and assets. And so I love to dig into, obviously, the on-ice component, the skill development work, and helping these players reach their potential. Like I said, maximizing who they are as a player. And then obviously there's a handful of off-ice components that go into it as well. But it's we got a great group on the development side in New Jersey. I work closely with our American League team in Utica, New York as well. It's been amazing. I've learned a lot. So looking forward to, taking some of that and trying to, in this role with the PWHL, consult and advise on, what does the future of player development look like in the PWHL as well. So, all good stuff.
Well, Megan, thanks so much for the time, because you are busy. I mean, you got different responsibilities with different groups. You have 3 children. You have a lot happening. So thanks so much for the time. Good luck with your new role with the PWHL, and continued success with the Devils.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on, and great to see you both.
And you as well. Keep
Megan
it up.
Duggan, doing a great job. She's a busy woman.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
no question
No
about
doubt.
that. And was a great player during her 14
sure.
years she played for Team USA and in the women's hockey game. Weeksy, we're running out of time.
What happened? Where'd it go?
It goes by quick.
Yeah.
I'll be on the showcase game tomorrow, the
Nice.
Blues
That's a
and the
great call,
Bruins,
as
1
always.
p.m. Eastern. You'll be joining me next week, I guess. We're back on board, but we got the game tomorrow. NHL Now is coming up next. We'll be back next week to try to do this all again. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Check us out on YouTube as well. Have a good weekend.